council members. And go ahead and proceed.
Do you want to put that in form of a motion?
More discussion?
Any more discussion?
Yeah, I guess I'm in favor of the master plan. We've said that several times since a year ago. And I think that the two organizations that had worked together or worked on the individual plans probably ought to be associated with helping play a leading role in the master plan development, since we are talking about their facilities. So I think you need to have a good transition of where they've gone, the thought process they've had, and things like that. And so, again, I'll say, I'm not saying that eventually you have just one committee. There's not an issue there. And I'm not saying don't do a master plan. I am saying I'm not in favor of just deciding today that we're disbanding the two committees. I think that there's value, and some people will get disbanded and you'll never hear from them again. And I think that there's some good work that's been done by both organizations and is still being done by both organizations, and I think disbanding them isn't sending the right message. And I think that we should continue to use those the goodwill and the good ideas that have come up through that, and the trade-offs that they've looked at, wrap that into a master plan, and then decide how to move forward with the consistent process. That's my.
Do you have any other comments before we call for?
Yeah, thank you. The one thing that I think that would be also very helpful is to add a timeline chart as we move forward, and that timeline chart is posted on the website and made available to the general public, so they can follow us through this process and be involved in whatever method that they can be involved, and it can be adjusted based on where we are, but yet give us some idea of how we're going to get through this process in the time frame, and where people maybe some people want to be involved in the latter portion, maybe the middle portion, I don't know, but yet give them that opportunity if we do stretch a timeline out for them to follow. And I do echo Mr. Lively's comments that creating the master plan and a consolidation of these committees would be a reasonable method to go forward.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm going to move that the Community Center Advisory Committee be created, that the two current committees be disbanded, that the recruitment process be opened up to all town residents, and including urging members of the current or the steering committee, library steering committee, and the town center committee to apply if they're interested in serving, and that there be two voting council members as part of this committee. And the primary initial goal here is to develop the town master plan and to develop a process by which the community can become engaged in the planning of our future facilities.
I'll second that motion.
Madam Mayor, there are a couple of staff recommendations. In implementing this, we need to come back to you with a change to the resolution, and we ask for that direction as part of the motion.
Oh, okay. So amended.
And it's up to you, but the staff also said, part of the disbanding to send appropriate things.
Then send the appropriate thing, yes. So with those two amendments to Vice Mayor Carlson's motion, I second that. Can I call for the vote? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'm opposed for the reasons I said. I don't want to lose the intellectual knowledge of the two committees, and I don't think that you have to move so hasty to disband.
So noted. Motion carries 3-1. Councilmember Widmer voting no for his reasons as stated. So we're going to move on to item number 18, which is our salary and benefit resolution for unrepresented employees. May I have the report, City Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. At the December 12th council meeting, the council approved the reconsideration of the November approval of the salary and benefits resolution. Staff was directed to return the resolution to the City Council in January with the following policy objectives. Transfer liability for payment of the employee's share of pension costs to the employee directly. Pursuant to AB 340, create a lower second-tier retirement plan for both local miscellaneous and local safety employees covered by the resolution. Eliminate the town's liability for post-employment health insurance premium payments beyond the minimum required employee contribution applicable prospectively. Create a CalPERS approved cafeteria plan for medical, dental, and vision insurance for current employees and establish caps for the town's cost. Establish caps on accumulated leave benefits, vacation, and sick leave. Consider elimination of the work furlough as part of that original resolution. Consider elimination of the merit bonus program, again as part of the original resolution. And reconsider the 18-month time frame for implementation of the transfer of the pension liability. I met with staff and discussed alternatives for implementation of the pension liability transfer, and in discussions with staff, another alternative was considered that allowed for a more immediate transfer of the CalPERS pension contribution and still allowed for a fair implementation. A position salary survey that was conducted in 2012 showed that on average, the employees covered by the resolution were paid below average for comparable positions in agency. At that time, and with the budget adoption in 2012-13, only one of those positions was adjusted, and that was the accountant position. I discussed two options for the pension liability transfer. Option one, spread the transfer out over a period of time of 3 fiscal years. This option continued consideration of the 2% merit bonus program as a negotiated means to help offset the impacts of that transition. Option two implemented the transfer in 1 year with a corresponding offset in salary to share the burden for that pension liability transfer only. And the cost to the impact of the town is shown in the table in the staff report. Option one, the 3-year transition, over the 3-year period of time, the employee contribution would be $169,000. The town contribution, which includes the 2% merit bonus program, would be $181,000. Option two, with the single-year transition and a 3.5% offset, the employee contribution over the 3-year period of time would be $288,000, whereas the town's contribution would be $138,000, saving the town approximately $43,000. The status quo, of course, is with the town paying 100% of the pension liability, and over that 3-year period of time, the town's costs are $276,000. The chart shows that the employee contribution is significantly more with option two, and it's difficult to see the incentive for the employee to choose option two as the favored option over option one. In order to truly understand that incentive for the employee, it's important to recognize that the town's payment of the employee's share of the CalPERS pension obligation was a negotiated benefit that added to the employee's pension calculation. Many agencies and bargaining units negotiated for this benefit by foregoing a cost of living adjustment at that particular time as part of another total compensation issue. The benefit worked by adding the amount to the employee's retirement salary calculation. For example, on a salary of $50,000 per year, the town would pay $3,500 in the employee's pension obligation on behalf of the employee. For the purposes of salary, the IRS counted that contribution as salary, and therefore when reporting a salary for the purposes of pension calculation, the town reported a salary of $53,500, even though the employee's actual salary was $50,000. For an employee retiring at age 60 with 20 years of service, a salary of $50,000 provided a pension of $26,200. With a salary of $53,500 reported, that is $28,034 as a pension for that particular employer with 20 years of service retiring at age 60. So it provided a benefit to that employee. With option one, not only are the employees picking up their share of their pension obligation as an immediate loss in their net pay, but they're also losing that added benefit of the additional salaried compensation for the purposes of calculating a pension. Option two provides for an increase in that salary range of half of the cost of that pension obligation in an effort to share the burden and offset that impact. The attached resolution meets the objectives of the council's established policies, as mentioned at the very beginning. Option two is a recommended alternative because it does save the town money over that 3-year period of time, approximately $43,000. And it does two things. It gets everything accomplished in year one, and I think that's a good goal to have. So we're not looking at out years trying to continue that implementation. The employees voted in favor of option 2. They also wanted to express to the council that they support the policy objectives of the council and appreciate the opportunity to be engaged in the discussion in meeting those objectives. They hope the council recognizes their hard work in support of this community and the desire for a job well done. They felt it was important to note that they are unrepresented and feel that they can remain unrepresented as long as they're given the opportunity to participate in the discussion and are treated fairly. In exchange for a 3.5% increase in pay, they've given up the 70th percentile salary guarantee that was in a prior resolution, town paid employee retirement, that's 7% that I talked about earlier, and directly paid town medical benefits in lieu of a cafeteria plan that will result in a negative impact on their pay as well. The cost savings for the retiree medical, that's prospective. The flexible benefit caps, the cafeteria plan, that saves the town approximately $2,080 per month or $24,960 a year. With option 1, the town saves on the retirement contributions on behalf of the employee, as shown in the chart. Option 2 provides a much bigger savings, up to $43,000 over that same period of time. You have the attached resolution. The only change is the immediate implementation of that 1-year period of time, the adjustment to the salaries of 3.5%, and the effective date of July 1st of 2013, so that is consistent with the 13-14 budget cycle. And there are 2 typos in the report with respect to that date, because I transferred this from the old approval. On page 5 of 15, the now therefore paragraph, it says January 1, 2013, that's supposed to be July 1, 2013. And then on page 12 of 15, under paragraph B of section 17, it does the same thing. It says effective January 1, 2013, that's supposed to be effective July 1, 2013. That concludes the staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions the council might have.
Thank you very much. This is a lot of information to take in. Does any council member have any clarifying or technical questions that they want to ask about this report before we open the floor for public comment?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Carlson.
The 2012 salary survey, reference is made that we saw that earlier. I recall that during the budget session or at some point in time, the accountant position being adjusted. I don't recall seeing all the other positions lined up. What constituted the salary survey? Were there peer cities around here, and you know, clarify in my mind what that salary survey was.
It was a salary survey of peer communities. Again, I wasn't here when it was conducted. I believe it was provided in information format to the council during a closed session discussion during negotiations. And at that time, there were a couple of recommended modifications, and the one that the council did adopt was the change to the accountant position. But it is a survey of comparable agencies, comparable positions that staff routinely compares job descriptions to.
So the benchmark to arrive at the town's overall being plus or minus compared to this group was against the mean or medium?
An average of the median, correct.
Of the whatever agencies these were.
Correct.
Do you recall which agencies?
Yes, I do actually.
I've got some charts, that show that, if you'd like me to fire up the machine.
Yeah, it was an email sent out.
Why don't you just read off the agencies that you have?
Okay, so, it's City of Millbrae, City of well, they're ranked in different ranking order depending upon what category, what position.
Alphabetical here, if you'd like to.
So City of Millbrae, San Carlos, Saratoga, Belmont, San Bruno, Brisbane, Los Altos, Menlo Park, Hillsborough, Los Gatos, and Woodside.
And not all of those agencies had exactly comparable positions, so the ones that didn't, they weren't compared to. The ones that did, they
Right.
found a respective position to compare it to.
So where you had let's say San Carlos, or a city that was quite a bit larger than Atherton is, how do you sort of equate the jobs in terms of the I would think there'd be more responsibility with a larger city in some respects for a given job.
Some of the positions, you're right, some of the positions might be a senior accountant versus if we're talking about the accountant position, or a junior accountant, which is just a straight accountant position. So when the survey was done, they had to go back and look at, whether the job requirements and qualifications similarly matched Atherton's, whether the workload may be different because it's a larger agency, but the minimum requirements to get into that position would be comparable.
So have you gone through and reviewed the survey in detail yourself?
This was, again, done back in May and June. I've looked at most of them, but not all of them.
Councilmember Whitmer?
Yeah, I have a couple charts I'd like to throw up.
Sure.
Can we do that? Please?
Go ahead.
If you'd like me to go up there, sure, I'd be more than happy to.
As that's
You probably
occurring,
should drive it.
I'm happy to get up, there's no problem. You know, as long as no one takes it to the fence, so I'm standing up as opposed to sitting down.
as that's occurring, the adjustments within this recommendation are based on current salary levels that staff is currently paid, not a salary survey or anything like that. So the salary surveys was done in the past, and that's where the positions came in for the current budget year. And so they're set. So these changes are based on those current ranges.
Okay. And not necessarily this survey that was.
Correct. That
given
was
to
just
us.
representative data back in May when the council adopted the budget in 2012.
There you go, we're up. So,
About this one. Better? Yes, thank you.
She's got to put her password in, she can't see to type.
I'm not looking, I'm not looking. How it does it?
Hyper secure.
Very, very secure.
Just in case you.
Password's on the
So is it,
computer.
so I have to go to your computer. And then get it up. Salary discussion. So, I read the report similar to, Councilmember, or Vice Mayor, Carlson, and I had some questions on the salary discussion, especially since, kind of at the beginning, it said, hey, our people are paid 4.4% below. And so, I contacted staff and said, okay, I'd like to see this survey as well. Here are the towns again that we're comparing to. So this was a survey that I think the date was done was something like May or something like that, but it was used in discussing salary. During the budget time, it was used in discussing some salary adjustments to an engineer, our city clerk, who we were changing from deputy city clerks, and then also the accountant. I think that was it, right? Oh, yeah, there was a discussion about the chief's executive assistant, and we had some discussion with regards to that. So, digging into these comparison cities, here are the comparison cities. And as you see, as the Vice Mayor pointed out, they're not all necessarily equal with us. I took a copy of what I think is kind of an easy, because we have a contract public works director, but there was a tab for every one of the major job titles, and so this is the public works director. So you see, all the towns had a public works director. Some of them had additional duties they listed here, but they put their salary their maximum salary. This is the maximum salary that you have. So our employees have like a 4-bandit system. So when somebody joins, oftentimes, depending on their skill or experience, say they've never been a finance director before, they start in the lowest tier. And then after 6 months or so, they get a review, and if they have a successful review, which, you know, in many cases in the past, there hadn't been reviews here, but people got increases. So they would go from tier A to tier B to tier C, and the top is tier D. And so these are the tier D numbers, and again, these are monthly, so you have to take those numbers that are up here and multiply them times 12. I took, these are probably difficult, maybe I can make this a little bit bigger.
Go ahead, hit F5 on the keyboard.
Just go to
Yeah, you can go
display. I'll tell you what, I'll just zoom. These are new glasses, sorry, zoom, okay? Let's go up to about 100. See if this is any better. So you see here, I took a couple representative groups. So we have the lieutenant, we have a public works supervisor, an engineer, an accountant, the assistant to the police chief, the finance director, 2 office specialists, and the city clerk. And I'll read these numbers off. So in the first column is the base salary. This is of the person that we have on payroll. And now this is public information, and you know, our budget is public, and you can go to the different pages in our budget and pull this thing off. Then I went to the city costs. So you can see here, for example, and not to point out, so the lieutenant is $135,232. But the city cost, with all the fringe benefits associated with it, is $228,000. Now, I've spoken before at council meetings that say our fringe rate is like in the 60% range, whereas in the private sector, it's down around 31%. So I think ours is a little higher. And the purpose of some of the discussions that we're having here and that we've initiated really last April, moving forward, were to try and pull these pay ideas back in line. Now, the next column.
Question, Bill?
Yes,
The 60% figure that you just cited, does that include side fund payoffs?
Not in all cases, no, because that's an off-balance sheet liability, so it's not included in departmental budgets. But I think it's an exercise that we need to go through as we have to talk. So. I don't think it does, but we'll verify.
I think
We'll
it
verify.
does.
We'll verify. I
Yeah.
think it's worthwhile that we verify.
Because
So
that's a fairly large amount.
It is factored into our CalPERS rate that we pay,
Right.
both the side fund
Yeah.
and the basic contribution.
I'm not so sure that's the case, but okay.
That's the
Yeah.
case.
Which is one thing different than private.
Because we have off-balance
Right.
sheet people.
Right,
We have off-balance, there's a tab, there's a group of people that we're paying,
Okay.
we have all their numbers, we have the
okay,
pay they're
Bill,
paying, but let's move
let's
on.
not be doing
Okay, so let's move on. So then I identified here, the next tab says, which is this one here, it says, has there been any, you know, are they a recent hire or adjustment? Now, why did and so you see it says 2012, for the people who have been recently hired or they had an adjustment. Like we mentioned some people who had already had some adjustments. And we also, and the reason I put the recent hires, because if somebody took a job with us, that's kind of like a market survey in and of itself, because somebody who's put the resume out on the street, they're not going to take a job that they think is below level. They take a job that's generally for something more than what they're currently making. And, you know, I hire a lot of people on a regular basis, and so that is really the market survey. So then I listed here the top number. So this was the max number. This is from all the different types of agencies. So what I did is I went through that previous chart, and you see Atherton was one of the towns that was listed there. I took the sum total of the top values, I took Atherton out of it, and then I divided it by the number of people who were left. And as the city manager pointed out, in many cases, some cities, for example, police lieutenant. Most cities don't have a police lieutenant, And in some cases, they have a police commander versus a lieutenant, you know, and so whether or not we took
Bill,
those, yes.
Can I just interrupt you?
Sure.
Because we're not talking about the police, and so this is really not a
I'm not-
good example. We are not, this is not a discussion about police salary or police
The lieutenant
revenue.
is included in this, as is this year.
The lieutenant and the police chief are part of this salary resolution, but
Okay.
we're not really talking
But-
about salary.
Okay, but I just don't wanna
Right,
get,
so
off
I
track
use
here.
that as an example, because that was the most glaring.
yeah, what's your point? Can we,
Well, I'll get there real quick.
okay, good.
So then I went ahead and I took the numbers, I took Atherton out of it, and that's the numbers that are there. So for example, for the public, let's say the engineer, the average top number is $109,500. All right, now we're at the 70% level, so if you take 70% of that, it's 76.7. Now we take, so we're at 99,000, and the average is 76.7. And if you add in the 7% pension, which you say in the report is the guys treated that as a salary, they were given that money as salary, that should be included in this and compared to the other agencies. So now suddenly, 109,000 for an engineer goes up to 106,000 compared to the 70% number, which is 76.7. So
Are you-
What's in their numbers though may be just salaries, so you have to compare
It
the
was
salary to
salary
salary, right?
okay.
No, but you're doing
So we gotta
salary
put
benefits.
7%. Why I added the 7% in, because in the city manager's report, he said that the salary was used as an incentive to stop giving people raises.
No, it's used as a calculation of their pension, but it may have been a negotiated benefit in the past
It was a
in lieu of a
negotiated
COLA.
compensation.
In the past.
Whatever. So all I'm saying is here, there's a lot of money that's associated with here, and my point here is that I'm not sure that first off, our numbers were 4.4% below what you said. I don't necessarily believe that, and the numbers don't ferret out to me. And I've got the facts here to show that. And I do think that we have to look at the total cost, because we're just talking about a couple little items here, but we're really trying to address the total budget. So I wanted to make sure that the public and the council really sees what the numbers are, because you didn't include these survey information and the detail here that I've spent several hours on putting together. So I think it's important for us to, as we're considering this, for us to know these numbers and to have these at the ready and use those for consideration. So,
Can we have the lights back on, please? Thank you very much.
no problem. And if anybody wants a copy of this, I'm more than happy to send one.
I'm just not convinced at this point that you were comparing fully loaded, fully burdened, salaries against fully burdened salaries.
The
Thank
fully
you,
burdened-
thank you for your
The
analysis.
fairly burdened number, Madam Mayor, was not what I was comparing. I was comparing salaries to salaries.
I had a hard time seeing this slide.
Well, I understand. I'm sorry, it was a little blurry, I didn't have my own
So-
technology.
So, okay. Do any other council members have any comments on this before I bring it open to the public?
So that's my question.
Okay. I'm going to open this to the public for any comments. Please step to the podium.
Thank you. My whole concern has always been how we have treated our employees. Over the years, we've balanced budgets, but we've done so with respect and caring and appreciation for all the dedication and loyalty of our employees, and that hasn't happened recently. I'm very happy that our new city manager has taken the time to talk to the employees and work through that, because that's extremely important. They need to know that we're interested in their welfare and what they've contributed to the town. And of course, with Bill looking at numbers, when I first came on the council, the first thing I did, I looked a stack of IBM sheets about that big, trying to compare, and it's very difficult to do that, with similar skills and backgrounds and education and all, and even just the responsibilities. But we did that as an effort to try to see that we are in line. We're treating, I mean, what I've always argued, we need to treat people fairly and be competitive. And we haven't. You know, the last op-ed that I did, I spent about 3 weeks talking with former employees, current employees, people at CalPERS, people at Moody's, to understand, I'm in the investment business. I have been for 50 years. I taught public finance. And you have to look at it on a total compensation basis. And the things I've heard, and all of you are here, you're not paid, you love the town, you're contributing, and you're doing what you believe is right. Unfortunately, a lot of the information simply is not accurate. And not only that I mentioned last year with budgets and so forth, but you know, I hear the comment that we're underpaid relative to we're overpaid relative to the private sector. Studies show that simply is not true. Now it's difficult because there's not exact comparisons when you compare police and fire and all. But when you look at it in terms of education and skills and years and hours of work, we're underpaid by about, I say we, mean employees are, by about 3.7%. The most important contributing factor to what you get paid is education. In the public sector, it's a more highly educated sector. 54% of people in the public sector across this country have at least a 4-year college degree. The private sector is 35%. If you compare those people with a 4-year degree in public sector, they're underpaid by 25%. If you look at all the people in our county, 20 cities, total employment, what we see is that we are in the middle. 10 of the cities are above us. And I think that, you know, you look at, we hear comments like, well, CalPERS, they are assuming a 7.5% return. Well, you know, if you look at the last 25 years, that return is over 9%. You can't look at things in just good and bad years. Last year they had 1%, the year before that 21%. It's going to vary, but you have to look at the long term. And I guess my main message is that, I'm sorry, but you really
Just
need,
wrap it up.
yes, the fact is you need to take the time and go through the kind of study. I mean, it's great to look at those numbers, but take the time to do that. You know, it's not as though we face a financial crisis in town. I hear things like, you know, bankruptcies, that's silly. And so you need to forget this for today. You know, in a few months, you're going to be going through the entire town. That's the way to do that, and do it fairly. And there are people who are willing to do this. And I will also say one thing. In talking to the people that have been fired, a lot of things happened that were very bad, that I was shocked, and you would be too, if you heard what had happened, the treatment of the people. We got to get beyond that. So it's important we respect, and I hope you're going to not pass anything this evening. Spend a few months, do it right, and it's going to come back in dividends to us.
Thank you, Malcolm. Is there any other member of the public who'd like to speak on this issue? I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the council. Does any council member want to make a comment on this?
No, I would like to make an additional comment.
Sure.
So I presented that I don't think our people are underpaid. Sorry. And so that's item number one. Item number two, I guess I have somewhat of a concern that if you look at the discussion and the resolution and discussions that when we first looked at this back in November, that Bill pointed out that because these people are unrepresented, of course, then we don't have any sort of binding contract. We can't have a binding contract. That'll be a multi-year contract. So we can make adjustments and say, yes, look at the analysis that's going to occur over a 3-year period of time, but it can change tomorrow. After we make the agreement, it can change tomorrow. And in fact, it's very clear here. Whereas the various terms and conditions of the resolution and the employees covered by this resolution recognize that the resolution may be amended at any future time prior to its expiration on the discretion of the council, and it goes on and on and on. So my concern would be that if we were going to do something like that, then there would need to be some sort of potential clawback if in fact we were going to opt out in some manner. And of course, that would have to be on some sort of net present value, so the 3.5% now, next year, if we had a claw back, would be 3.2, and the year after, at a 2% inflation rate, would be down around 3.1. So those are some of my concerns with regards to that, other than the fact that we did start discussing this thing almost a year ago. By the time this gets implemented, this whole exercise will have taken 16 months. It was implemented once in November with a retroactive date to October 1st. And then on the 19th of December, the council decided that they were going to back it off. So it was actually in effect for approximately 90 days. The value of those 90 days is about $23,000 to the town. So, those are things that I think that we all need to consider as we're looking into, making a final decision on this, hopefully a semifinal or a final decision, with regards to this issue, because I think that we've taken an awful long time. Everybody on this council has addressed this, and we've wrung our hands on it. We've adjusted it and upped it and changed it multiple times, and it's awful frustrating that here we are again, and now it's not going to be done until June or till July 1st. So, and I'm concerned about the non-term capability, where the employees are saying, well, look, they're going to give up the 70 percentile, but I just showed you in my presentation that 70 percentile says that we're well overpaid if we're still on the 70th percentile. Plus, if they were represented, we would be able to have a binding contract that would last for the period of time, unless we chose to financially agree to some sort of compensation and trade-off. So that's my comments.
Councilmember Fleece, would you like to make any comments?
Thank you. First off, I personally would like to say that I thank all the employees in the town for hanging in there and going through this process, which probably one might assume would have been part of the budgetary process and negotiations. I have to echo a comment that Kathy said. Well, it's taken us 8 months to get to this point, and I thought sitting here today that I was ready to say, gosh, I felt real comfortable about where I was going, because Malcolm brought up some good points.